Hi, beauties. I trust all is magnificent in your world tonight. And if it isn't, then join the rest of the family out there. What a ride. Oh, my goodness. First of all, I just want to say thank you so much to Spirituality Gone Wild for hosting us and helping with this platform. There are shows 7 days a week on Spirituality Gone Wild. A lot of fantastic shows all across the board. And then they're also working within Unify. So I just wanted to give a big shout out to them because they are fantastic at helping to create a supportive community. And I am eternally grateful for them. So without further ado, you have reached True EQ. It's part of Lighthouse Affects. Lighthouse Affects is a program that I came up with maybe 15, I don't even remember anymore. It was a long time ago. It's this idea of really helping to reestablish what community can look like in like moving away from really toxic environments and where people are like on that roller coaster, you know, because in the music industry, my experience has been a lot of where people didn't really have the tools to cope. So they chose drugs and they chose alcohol and they chose touring and they chose avoidance in a pretty massive way often. And that was just kind of the regulator of the music industry during my time. And I recognize that a lot is shifting right now. So tonight we're going to really just sit and talk about those things for a little while. If you're within the music industry, I welcome you. Even if you're not, and you have some things that you'd like to add in terms of emotional health and well-being, I welcome that as well. We call it True EQ because my partner, my husband, and I are building a really high-end recording studio here in the Midwest. We were talking about going to, there's a musician, his name is Peter Gabriel. It's over in England. And we were discussing creating our next album there. And then we realized that with the money that we were going to spend at the studio, that we could take that money and that we could start investing in the communities here in the United States. So for a long time, I've looked at those platforms at what is it that creates this, like this environment of up and down and up and down and up and down. And it was across the board when I was in the industry. I was a DJ for many years. I was helping to make sure that promotions were being done. I worked in large concert venues. I helped to plan large events, and I was a touring musician. So with all of those pieces, what I started to recognize was, you know, as a touring musician, I would come home and we'd be out on tour. We'd be going to bed at between 2 and 4 in the morning. We'd get up, have to do some radio show or be ready for the newspapers or whatever it was in the next morning. So then you're back on the road by 10 o'clock going to the next location. And after a while, I just felt really isolated and really withdrawn. And as much as I really wanted to be able to connect with people, I recognized that there was this environment that was being created, and I would go out on stage at night and people would be like, "I love you, how are you?" And I'm like, wow, that feels amazing. But then what I realized was that these songs that so often, like, and let me know if you can relate to this, like, what are your favorite artists that you would go and see them, you're like, I love you. And you've been with them since you were a child or since you were a young person. And that was really the only time that somebody really got you, was like this one song. So right now there's a song by the Killers, and it talks about just like driving in your car and how much you love the person. And so often this music, you know, we can ingest it. It becomes a part of who we are. And it's so easy to get swept up in that, to be up in this place of the pedestal. And it isn't real, and it's isolating, and the fans are isolated. And the fans are also in this place of, you know, I love you. I love being this connected to you. And I just paid $200 to come see your show, or whatever it is. Or maybe it's $10 to try to support your band, but then they're gone. And then that's it. And what legacy have they left beyond their music? And then I would sit and I would talk to these musicians, and their life is, like just like toxic, right? And the only way that they're trying to process all of these emotions is through, like, you know, they're like, because I remember being there in writing sessions where people are like, you know, like just tanked trying to figure out, like, wait, what did I just say, man? Well, that was really good. Wait, what was that? You know, and just trying to like take tiny little pieces of life and pull it together, or their relationships are a wreck, right? Like, sure, they've been married for 20 years, but they barely ever talk to their spouse, or 30 years, or whatever it is. And they don't have the basic life tools for functioning. And so what I've looked at in all of my years of looking at emotional health, and especially as it relates to the music industry, is what tools do we have to support each other? So when life like punches you out, you know, beyond the 2 a.m. where you're like strumming your guitar, like, oh my gosh, it's like the saddest moment ever, you know, and that it becomes its own cycle. You know, it would be like these you get really into those feelings and those emotions. And the other piece that I was recognizing was that pain point became the force of creativity for so many musicians. So many musicians. Like, think about it. Think about how many times it's either about drinking, about drugs, or about breakups. And all of those are well, yeah, those are like the main kind of pain points that happen for people, or death. But usually it's death of relationships. So people would get into the cycle that I was recognizing. And again, I've been in the industry since I was 18. I'm 48 now, I think. I think I'm 48. It sounds about right. So, you know, so oftentimes people are like in this, the only way that they know how to create is through pain points. And so there's this loop cycle that starts, and they're like, oh, this feels so good, and I'm so in love, and oh my goodness, and like, oh, this is so pleasing and so fulfilling. And then like 6 months later, they're in these exact same patterns, and this is across the industry. So it hasn't mattered if I've gone to the Christian industries, the religious industries, the spiritual industry, not the industry, the music scenes. And even like the non-secular, across the board, exact same things were showing up. So years ago, when I was a young person, my parents were saying, maybe you should have a backup plan. Besides the music industry, maybe you should think about something a little more. Like, what is there more than the music industry? And I was in this place of, is there anything beyond the music industry? And I went and I applied for a school in Northern California. And I started to learn. I got my bachelor's degree in therapeutic and how to have fun in therapy, like the deeper ends of therapy. What is the grander purpose? And how is it that you can take like all of this mess, like, you know, the brain that won't shut down at nighttime to let the person rest? How do you take all of that and place it into another container so that the body and the nervous system can start to calm down, so that we can look at the 12 parts of our lives where dysfunction can happen on a massive level? And how do we start to like drop in and become an observer of the chaos that we are so capable of creating in life? And so with that, I just got into this deeper place of communicating with purpose. And I remember sitting backstage with so many musicians and sidelines with so many musicians, and they have to go on stage right after a breakup, or like after a massive, and this is all throughout the entertainment industry, and I'm sure it's in other work environments too. But how do you function when your life is in turmoil and chaos? And it was the one common thread that I saw throughout the industry, and I didn't see anybody addressing it. And so I started to ask the questions, well, why aren't people addressing this? You know, I see it a little bit in rehab, in the rehab areas. And I think, you know, 20 or 30 years ago, that was like the big thing, was a lot of people going into rehab. But even when they came out, there's still a missing link. There was a missing community, right? So you come out and then you try to like who are the people that you can relate to? And then I recognized like there was a missing link in the financial systems, because a lot of people were making a lot of money in the industry, but the musicians themselves across the board were not being paid at the rate that they should have been paid for their time and their effort. And then the relationships, and then the partner relationships, and then their family relationships. And then the dysfunction around, I thought that sex was intimacy, and how to break down those conversations. So the more that I started to piece these items together, the nourishment that it actually takes to be able to do some deep self-care as a musician, so that we're not just stuck in these loop patterns, because the loop patterns keep us shut down, and we don't have accessibility in order to get to a place of caring for ourselves. And then what I see is the greater purpose of musicians, which is, how do we serve our communities? Because we are able to reach people like nobody else is able to reach them. You don't even have to sing the same freaking language in order to be penetrative, in order to get into that heart space. Nobody else on the planet. Okay, well, maybe one person. Maybe it's artists across the board. You can see a piece, you know, you can see somebody dancing, you can see some artwork. Maybe that's as moving. So just in a broader statement, for me, it's the 3 a.m. that I've been listening to a song and I press the repeat button. I'm like, oh my gosh, I really understand what they're saying. I love this song. And I just melt inside of it. And that is the opportunity that we have once we are filled. Give me a shout out if you get what I'm saying. Anuprava, thank you, beautiful. Another gorgeous musician. Thank you. I should have you on the show, woman. So one piece that I'm really seeing is this common thread of what can we actually do to start creating something far more profound than the ups and downs that the previous industry was all about. And we have a divine opportunity right now, right? Nothing's left in the music industry. All those people who we were paying $200 to go see their show, or $50 or $5, not much of that is happening right now. Facebook is about to shut down all the music happening online. So this is an amazing opportunity to reformulate. Like, what are we doing? Are we just here to serve ourselves? Are we just here to, wow, I'm really amazing. Oh my goodness, you know, that can last, right? That can last 70 years and upwards if you wanted to. It can really feed that outside shell. But I think those cycles are changing, and I'd like to know if you agree with that. You know, what are your viewpoints? Where have you been stuck in your industry? And what are you doing to serve a greater purpose in life? One piece that I'm looking at right now in studies, because I'm wanting to go on for my master's and my doctorate's degree around this, is how are we serving a greater purpose other than ourselves in humanity? How are we truly stewarding? I sit with so many people in their relationships, so many, like crying. I don't understand why it is that all of this stuff is coming up for me. I don't understand why my relationships are struggling. I don't understand why my partner just hit me. I don't understand. And I'm like, there's a breath there that needs to happen. And one piece that I'm recognizing is that it's upon all of us right now to start looking at the parts that we're contributing to toxicity in our life, and then tiny, tiny, tiny little pieces at a time, just start to expand the narrative and start to understand that other people are going to have other points of view. And that maybe we can go in and we can start looking at parts of our lives that are out of alignment and be willing to get a little bit uncomfortable, really pretty uncomfortable sometimes, but at least a little bit uncomfortable, in order to start taking some ownership. It's like own your poop, right? Like, come on, man. Really? You can't figure this out? You can't figure out why your partner isn't wanting to talk to you? Really? I know, like, there's some self pieces that we've just kind of allowed to happen throughout society, but we're not allowed to do that anymore. And it stings so bad sometimes. Like, it's like, oh, I don't like that. Oh my gosh, I'm so uncomfortable. You know, how many of you have been really uncomfortable in your relationships recently? Like, there's this, it's like this stickiness of like oh my gosh, there's so much to figure out here. Where do I even begin? How do I even start taking ownership of some of this? So one piece of this is like the tracking mechanism. Emotional health is the core piece of the 12 areas of life, which you're welcome to look up. It's like, what are the key 12 parts of life that are about creating stable relationships across the board. I have them written out. I will put them in the comment sections, but it's important to consider that, like, what are the areas of my life that I can take ownership? And so often people wait for the other person to point it out to them, and then they make that other person into the jerk. They're like, that they just said something about me, and I was like that, instead of, wow, I was a really crappy person like a half hour ago. Maybe I should take some ownership about that. Or the this is something that I heard backstage a lot, like, oh my gosh, she's so crazy, like she follows me everywhere. And I'm like, well, maybe if you weren't sleeping with her, and maybe if you hadn't, like, you know, put the gone up and got an apartment with her, maybe she wouldn't be thinking that you're actually together with her, because you haven't really been clear about your boundaries. So as gently as I can, like, I just on a show last week, they're calling me the drill sergeant coach, right? Like, come on, people, really, you really don't know it. And I got this great visualization a while ago, and it's have you ever, for those of you who have been water skiing, okay, this is the example that I have for when things aren't working anymore and you should probably let go and try it again. So it's when you're water skiing and you fall, and then your face is like just hitting the water repeatedly. And God is saying, hey, let go of the rope. I'll circle around. I'll come back and get you, right? And then people are like, no, but I want to hang on. I want to hang on. And just like that battering, like, just freaking let go of the rope, man. Let go. We're going to circle back around. It's going to be all right. When you're at those deep pain points, you're not supposed to keep hitting that wall, right? Even if you put a helmet on, you darling thing, even if you did that, stop hitting your head against the wall and go out and get some tools and get some community. And that is where I think we are in the industry. I think we've hit the water. And I think it is up to us within this industry to circle the boat around and come back and say, damn, man, that was all about me. All of it was all about me. Oh my gosh, yes, I'm so amazing. Woo! You know, like all of that stuff. Meanwhile, our fans are committing suicide, right? or so intoxicated by the end of the show that they can barely stand upright. So something struck me in the middle of all of that as I was getting stalkers. As I was listening to young people tell me that some of my music was so influential in their life that they decided not to take their life that night. We have a freaking responsibility. And it isn't about partying, and it isn't about getting laid. We're creating music in order to change lives. Our life, to fill up within our life, to be able to process the information that's going on. But more than that, it's our responsibility to humanity and to show up on a much bigger stage. So one piece that I was thinking about was, how do we make these joyful experiences for people, right? Still like the fun party scene, the woo, but what can one person do in order to start transforming those communities? So that when we're out on tour, we're in Europe, if Europe ever lets Americans in again, but when we're out, when we're in whatever communities we're touring through, how is it bigger than us? How is it bigger than just me? I did a lot of benefit concerts. I raised a lot of money in benefit concerts for other people. And I think the key shift that's happening in the entertainment industry is this idea that it's bigger. And how are we going to start creating those platforms? So what I've started to propose is bringing in these emotional health tools to help us gain some clarity. And just to be completely authentic, I'm still working on it. So like a couple days ago, I was in the kitchen and I had a choice. Like I had the opportunity to not be a jerk, but I was. There's this thing called tracking. It's where you're able to recognize what's going on and recognize the crap that's about to come out of your mouth. Now, if you're really good at emotional health, you can close out the part that you're about to say and you can come up with other words. If you're not very good at that and you don't have community and you haven't practiced, then all kinds of toxic vomit comes out on a regular basis. And it's like, what did I say? Why are they so upset? Or the other side of that can be, wow, I should probably take some ownership around that. I can see that landed on you. Sorry. And then you're like, cleaning off their shoulders and sorry about that. So the other night I was I was just pissy, right? So I said, I hadn't had a few days of a lot of clarity and I thought I was being helpful because that's how I am. I'm very helpful. And when I was talking with my partner, I said, like he rolled his eyes about something and I was like, what? Why are you rolling your eyes? What are we, freaking 12? But I didn't say that. I let just all that percolate in my brain. And then afterwards I said something to the, I don't have like the angel halo going on. I definitely own that there was like a rage behind the comment because that you can say things and it can be like, have you ever had this ability to be able to say something and it could be like nice and kind, but then you have like a little bit of angst behind it? So it's getting into those subtleties that I'm talking about in emotional health so that it's across the board, that all of our relationships are more like, I should probably take a 15-minute walk and cool the heck down before I make this next comment. Can you imagine what the world would be like right now if we did that across the board taking like those 15-minute walks. And sometimes it's going to take like a 4-hour walk, honestly. Like you may need like a 1-mile beach with nobody else on it and massive boulders that you can just toss into the water and get all of that aggression out, because there is a lot to go around right now. So with this conversation the other night or the other day, whatever, I remember kind of what I said, but it wasn't very nice. It was just like, are you done with like this condescending right? And of course that set off the spark. That was the ignite button. And a little part of me was like, there we go. Because I was in this place of, I think I'm okay with this. But then there's another part of me that's like, damn, dude, damn. So how often in life are we in this place of the damn dude? Dude. And then I recognized that I just shut down. Like I didn't want to be touched. I didn't want to be talked to. And then I just recognized that my nervous system and that my brain was in this place that was shut down in protection mode of how wrong the other person was. And please post if you are experiencing this these days. How often is the storyline that you're telling yourself creating an enemy out of the other person across the board? So one part that I'm recognizing is put down the phone, turn this computer off. Stop looking for all of the ways that you can fight. Because there's plenty to go around if that's what we really want as a society. But what I'm asking of the music industry is to start recognizing that as humans, we are here as stewards to care. To spend a few less minutes completely tanked and a few more minutes sitting with the person who's having a really challenging time that night. But that we're so overflowing with resources and tools and community and supporting each other. So overflowing that we actually have 15 minutes to spare for humankind. And what would that be like? So I would come into the buildings in when I was going out to record albums. Most of the time in like the inner city type of feel. And I just remember going in and I'd be like, just no inspiration, right? Just this beat the head against the wall stuff. And that feeling of where is community? Like all of these people are coming and going, all these music industry, hustle, hustle, hustle. No, and a lot of hustle, but no net, nothing catching each other. Hearing about friends that had OD'd. Or another divorce, or another breakup. Or somebody else that walked away from their family. So I started to ask the question, like, what can I do in order to change and shift this industry? And I started to get like all of these, go learn these tools for nonviolent communication, like that's a huge one, pretty big. Learn what are our emotions. Can you name your emotions, right? Most people are like, I feel, this is a good one. Like, I remember having this conversation. Like somebody would say, how you feeling? I'm like, or they'd say, how are you feeling? What are you needing? Right? Kind of in a crappy way, right? Like, what are you feeling and what do you need? Right? And I'd be like, I feel like you're a jerk and I need to be left alone. And that was the extent of my emotional health at one point, a very long time ago. And so how often have we had these conversations where like that is the extent of the conversation that we're going to have. And then they're like, well, I want this person to love me. I want to be with them for the rest of my life, right? And meanwhile, they're like just stabbing themselves with all of this emotional toxicity of why can't this other person change for me? And aren't I good enough? And I call it adding martyr sauce. It's like when you feel crappy about yourself and then you surround yourself with a community who absolutely refuse to do any work on themselves, to be able to take accountability for themselves. And then you feel really bad about it on top of that. Like, why won't people love me? Right? So it's a long road because there's not a lot of people doing it. But the more of us that start practicing these tools, the less people have to walk around stabbing themselves or stabbing other people emotionally, that is, or vomiting on people emotionally. Because then we can have like a community of people that you're dropping in with regularly, accountability partners, so that you can steward on a much higher level. Wouldn't that be something? So with that, I started to take a look and I started to really engage and piece together all of these moments of my life of, wow, how can I do this better? What can we reimagine for the industry? What are some bare minimum steps and some bare minimum tools that we can start bringing in? Like, what are your core emotions? What are your feelings when you're tracking inside of yourself? Like when somebody says, hey, what are you feeling? You have more of an answer than I'm feeling like I want to get drunk. You know, like there's more options. You're so beautiful. You have so much that you can offer to the world. It just takes tiny little pieces and tiny little doses to be able to expand our vocabulary. And I get the people like, I don't want to. I'm exhausted by the end of the day. I don't want to do anymore. My partner's always asking me about this stuff. I don't want to read any more books. I've had it up to here. I get it. I get that that's a lot. But we're creating and imagining our futures and expanding our narratives. No, you don't have to. You don't have to. But that's when the face just keeps on hitting the puddle and the person wonders why that keeps on happening. Thank you. Yes. That. That. And Anuprabha is an exemplary and gorgeous musician. Thank you, gorgeous. So our feelings, our needs, and oftentimes in the music industry, we're taught to just go, 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 hustle, hustle, hustle. And it keeps us on the starvation loop. Like, okay, we're not going to pay you enough money, number one, in order to let your nervous system relax enough. But we will give you plenty of drugs and alcohol in order for you to just ignore all of those emotions. And then we'll keep your tour schedule so booked up that you don't have any time to breathe or really connect with anybody on a deep level. I don't know if you've been on tour buses, but after the shows, people are like zoned out, exhausted. I'm not speaking for all tours. I don't know all tours. I just know the ones that I've experienced. Yes, there's the parties. Yes, whew, plenty of great parties. But after that, the downturn, the crash, the isolation, it's why I sense that we're in this in-between phase within the music industry, so that we can reevaluate what are we doing. And it's really, for me, I see it as a gift for the world. What are we doing? When was the last time you took a deep breath? Like all the way, a full deep breath. When was the last time that happened? Have you done it 5 times a day lately? Have you had oxygen? Or are you on the phone like this in the morning or whatever it is, and you're like, typing information and saying stuff to people that really don't care what I have to say for a half hour and then delete it? Because what are you contributing to the world? Yeah, sure. We have the possibility of exuding as much toxicity as possible. Clearly, we are very, very, very talented at that. Same thing, same industry as the, and somebody's holding the head over the toilet by the end of the night because the person can't even hold up their own head, but you don't want them dying because they're 33 years old, and everybody dies at 33 over the side of a toilet throwing up. So what are we doing beyond the vomit in life? What are we actually doing to nourish people and nourish communities? And how can you start contributing and learning a few basic tools to be able to track yourself and say, wow, you know what? I'm really recognizing I'm pretty angry right now. And instead of lashing out, maybe I'm going to go for a walk. Or maybe there's a big blow up and maybe you actually have a few tools in order to go back in and clear up the throw up that just happened. Like me a couple days ago. It actually took me, I think, maybe 2 hours before I could receive a hug. Like, oh, yeah, okay, all right, I'm doing this. But I got there. That's after years of practicing this stuff. And I got there sober. So this is really an invitation to musicians and to those within the music industry. We have this opportunity to fill up. We have this beautiful community that we're forming. My husband and I purchased this land. I have been working for 2 years to really transform the back forest into something that's inspirational so that when people come out, their nervous system can actually relax a bit. And I've talked to musicians and they're like, yeah, but man, I don't know how to do anything but hardcore. Thank you, love. Like, this is so like, how will I be inspired out here? I'm used to like pounding the pavement and not sure if I'm going to make it tomorrow. How is this inspiring? And so I just offer a hug and sit. And then within a half hour, they're crying because they haven't heard anybody talk like that before in the industry. Thank you, love. Ana Prabha was just saying, feeling your tender heart and a care for humanity. That's true. Let's start caring about each other. I was thinking a couple nights ago, this isn't our world to take apart. There are children yet to be dreamed. This is our world to be able to piece together and to steward. And I recognize that I can be a much better steward. I have a lot to learn. A lot. I try to show up most days pretty humble. And I try to keep my mouth shut as much as possible. But here is where I'm really creating a warm place in order to start welcoming us in the music industry. Because I believe that our art can touch people in the most intimate times of their life when nobody else is allowed in. And I'm really going to go with that because although I might really love Monet, I can't legally take that painting off the wall and bring it home and cry over it at 3 a.m. But I have so many musicians that I have cried to their music. Willie Nelson was like the last big. You're like, oh my gosh, that's so good. May have been a little bit. Yeah, it was. I had a memory come up about my mom. And I heard the song on the road again while I was in the car, and I was just crying and crying. What songs do that for you? I want to know, like, what songs really touch your heart space? It can be your own songs. It can be somebody else's songs. What songs have reached you when nobody else could reach you? So I wanted you to know that I welcome you, all of you, the mess, the I don't have it all figured out, the I got it all figured out, the hitting the brick wall, all of that. You are welcome out here at any point. We're in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Moved out of California a number of years ago, like 20 years ago, to pursue this dream and to let it come into fruition. So we're building a really high-end studio. We're in the midst of it. It's nearly finished. And there is a place for musicians. And we are coming together as a community of people to start asking, how do we nourish ourselves? How do we do deep self-care? And how do we care for others after we've reached a level of overflow? So I'll drop in a few notes here and there at the end. I'm really interested in hearing from you. If you're a musician and somebody in the music industry that would like to be on the show, I welcome you. I really welcome you. Tamara was not able to be here this evening, but I do look forward to a time that she can connect with us. And yeah, like the page, share the page, find Spirituality Gone Wild. They have 2 shows 7 days a week. Yeah, and let me know how I can be more in service and what types of tools you could use within helping to nourish and build bridges within your community. You can see one of the concerts that I put together 2 years ago in 2018 to help really restore and start looking at what we can do in order to make these platforms of engagement far more reaching for and sustainable, so that after you're gone, after you go out for your tour, and the moment that those doors close behind you, you leave a positive impact on the community. Just showing up, using your music for deeper engagement. We can do it. We can dream it. Yeah. So that's it for this evening. I am Radiance Tyler, and you are listening to True EQ. My company is called Lighthouse Affects, AFFECTS. I send lots of love to you and all of yours. You are welcome to share this information with others. And come on by my page and drop a note, or drop a note in the comments section off the Facebook page for Lighthouse Affects. And thank you, Anaprabha, for your gorgeous comments this evening. I really deeply appreciate it. Sending love to each of you on the journey. Let me know how you might appreciate support. Take good care, everybody. Good night.